Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about astrology and the death of Nicole Thea. And I don't know if I'm saying her last name correctly, but many of you may know she was a YouTube sensation celebrity. She was a dancer. She got millions of views. And the thing is, she died very young at the age of 24 years old. It was on July 14th is when she died. But the cause of death has been, at least I believe it was July 14th, but it was, if it wasn't that date, it was somewhere near that date, one way or the other. But the thing is, she died of a massive, it's been revealed, divulged, it's been a massive heart attack, and she died. When she died, she was pregnant at the time. She was like 8 months pregnant, and the child had died, of course, with her when she passed on. It's just terrible when you hear about things like this. It's just a lot of these celebrities dying lately. It's almost becoming redundant and monotonous, and it's also what's surprising too. A lot of these people are relatively young too. This person, Nicole Thea, her birthday is July 29th, 1995, in London, England. That's the data I got when I looked it up online. Time of birth is unknown, of course. Again, I had to improvise and do a solar slash sunrise chart. But of course, her sun is in Leo, and based on the solar sunrise time, her moon is also in Leo. So there is obviously this being the case. If her moon is in Leo, then I mean you're talking about very strong Leo energy, because not only that, she also has Mercury in Leo on top of that. So the thing about it is, of course, the sun in Leo is about wanting to shine. It can be the basic wants can be tied in with attention, notoriety, exposure, and also the basic character being very flamboyant and very extroverted. And she's obviously, I mean, with all this Leo energy, she was likely somebody that was not afraid of the limelight. But what I'm looking at too is, though, based on the solar sunrise chart, she has 8 of the 10 planets below the horizon. So she was likely more introverted, more introspective than the typical sun in Leo. Now, we don't know the time of birth. That could obviously change things, because of the time of birth could be such where it would actually put the preponderance of planets on the top half of the chart. But anyway, I want to talk about some placements in her, in her chart that could be tied in, as far as placements in her chart and transits that may have played a contributing role, sadly, in her passing. Well, another thing too is having. I want to just go. I took the Sun Leo, having the Moon likely in Leo. This would be really is somebody that liked to give really a strong impression of, I guess you could say, like grandeur, and somebody that really, really having the emotional needs really strongly tied in with the limelight and getting acclaim and getting recognition. The moon is actually connected with the public, and then if you have it in Leo, I mean that could be perhaps on a large scale. Is how that could manifest something tied in with the public that could be entertainment. Now, she has Venus in that 12th house in the solar sunrise chart. Venus at Cancer at 29 degrees. Venus, of course, you're talking about what one can love, and you're talking about the zodiac sign Cancer, where one could often love unequivocally, unconditionally. 12th house can correspond with dancing in astrology, so I'm sure this is something that she really was likely very infatuated with. You're talking at the 29th degree as well. It's really, we call it like the full culmination of the sign. And 29 degrees in Cancer can also, I mean, 29 degrees in Cancer, some of you may have heard of, is referred to as the millionaire's degree. So she likely had, I mean, Venus is the planet associated with money. She may have, may have made a good amount, an exorbitant amount of money in what she was doing. I don't know how her channel was set up, if it was monetized or what have you, but whatever it is, however she obtain money. I'm sure she actually was very affluent and well off, and likely had her account set up for monetization. But that is something that I don't I'm not sure of. So anyway, now going to some placements in her chart, and transits that might have been tied in with her unfortunate passing. Well, the first thing I'm looking at, okay, in her natal chart, I mean, having the sun in Leo, I mean, Leos can be, despite having sun in Leo, can really give a very exorbitant vitality, near inexorable energy. Of course, the sun is in its dignity in Leo, but it's not like it doesn't have any possible drawbacks. There's still great susceptibility to heart attacks, and she did have a massive heart attack at the time of her death. And the thing too is you're looking at there's other things in her chart too. I'm seeing is that sadly in her natal chart, I mean, she also has the ruler of the fourth house of the solar sunrise chart. I'm sorry, the ruler of the fourth house of the end of life in the 12th house of restrictions, which is the ruler being Venus, Venus and Cancer at the 29th critical degree. Um, some other things I noticed. She also has on her eighth house cusp in the solar sunrise chart. She has it at 22 degrees Aquarius. Of course, that is a critical degree, and it can suggest and manifest in a very unpredictable, very spontaneous, unexpected passing. Now, also, too, in her fifth house in the solar sunrise chart, she has Pluto in it. Sometimes this could manifest in the death of a child. Um, a death of a child is not something that never happens. Everybody's children will die eventually, but I think the fact that somebody has Pluto in their fifth house, this could actually increase a propensity, if you will, for a child dying during the time you're alive. I have Pluto in my fifth house in my natal chart, and I don't have any children. Remember that Pluto, I mean, Saturn, you look at Saturn's about restriction, but Pluto is flat out connected with obliteration and destruction, sadly. And what Saturn will restrict, Pluto can sadly destroy at times. And the thing about it, too, is she also has Pluto conjunct Jupiter, and that could exacerbate those issues. Now, she also has, and as far as the solar sunrise chart, the fifth house is also intercepted. And when you have houses that are intercepted, there can sometimes be difficulties in connection with those houses. Now, the thing about it too, and Jupiter is intercepted in her fifth house in Sagittarius, and it's also the ruler of the intercepted fifth house as well. Another thing too is that I noticed as far as a transit goes. Now, sadly, at this time, she had transit Pluto, making a conjunction to her natal Neptune. Now, in the sixth house of daily routine and work. Sometimes, though, you're talking about transit Pluto hitting one's Neptune. This could be an indicator of perhaps a death that will be shown through filmography. I mean, because Neptune can be associated with videos, with filmography, and you're talking about Uranus is also conjunct Neptune. Uranus can be about television. This is something which she got. I mean, her death was put basically. I mean, considering she was famous and she was a popular YouTube sensation, that her death had been put into the limelight, basically. And Neptune is also associated with dancing, so it's not shocking that she died during the time when she was working. She was doing, you could say, work as a dancer. Neptune is in her sixth house of work in the solar sunrise chart, and you're talking about Neptune can be associated with dancing. Now, another thing I'm noticing, too, in her chart, she also has transit Neptune, appears to be close to her natal, not far from her natal Saturn. It wouldn't be considered a conjunction by transit, but it's still in fairly close proximity. It could have been a time where she might have actually been feeling somewhat alone and desolate at this time. You're talking about Saturn could be associated with sadness, and of course, Neptune is isolation. But at the same time, transit Neptune in the ninth house could be an indicator of doing something with dancing, which is being through global communications. Through ninth house is the house associated with global communications. It's so you could say through the internet is one way this could have manifested. Now, Saturn in Pisces by itself can sometimes indicate a career in which you could be doing dancing with. So now, and also, it wouldn't surprise me if she could have actually, with Saturn in Pisces, she could have potential as well to do something like with the metaphysical, which includes astrology or spirituality, poetry, photography, chemistry, anesthesiology, anything that could be Pisces related. Now, another thing I noticed too, as far as a transit goes at this time, she also had transit Sun in Cancer in the 12th house in her chart. Now, the Sun in astrology can be associated with the heart. And you're talking about the transit heart hitting the 12th house of weakness, hospitalization. She was likely rushed to a hospital at this time. And the thing about it too is you're also talking about the sun, the transit sun being in the zodiac sign Cancer, which is associated with family. It's also associated with life giving, and I would say childbirth could be childbirth as well. And she had been, of course, pregnant at the time of of her death, sadly. So, and you're talking. I mean, also something else that I noticed as well, that transit Saturn is also making, I mean, you could say not an opposition by as far as by degrees. I mean because it's out of the orb, but transit Saturn was not far, and you could say it made a very loose opposition to her natal Sun at this time. So, and sometimes when you have planets that are in opposition to the sun, and this you're talking about the sun in Leo, that could be some health related issues that could come up. She might have actually been having, wouldn't surprise me if there was some Saturn like problems at this time, transit Saturn in Capricorn, which could be something with the bones, the knees, the teeth, the hamstrings, something that could be Saturn related. So there's really not much more I wanted you could really get at as far as you know Nicole Thea and her sad passing. It's just terrible that something like this were to transpire, and again, it's just really getting monotonous, really redundant in these deaths that are associated with people that sadly are relatively young, and they should not be passing at such a relatively young age. I mean, it's just terrible. Someone 24 years old, you could argue she wasn't even in the prime of her life at this time. So anyway, people, and also, one last thing I wanted to get at is also at this time as well. She also had the transit Sun in Cancer when she passed was making at the very least a loose opposition to her natal Neptune. So you're talking about the Sun in astrology can also be associated with the left or right eye depending on gender. And you're talking about Neptune can be about making things obscure and blurry. So it's an indicator to me to some degree that maybe this was something that she really had a hard time seeing coming, and she might have not really had much warning or precursors regarding this situation with her heart, because of course the sun in astrology can be associated with the heart. So Anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.